the president of the Wheat Ridge Business Association, I thank you all for this recognition. Thank you.
Well, Maki, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Our next proclamation is designation of November as Native American Heritage Month. Whereas during Native American Heritage Month, we celebrate the rich tapestry of indigenous peoples and honor their sacrifices, which we recognize as inextricably woven into the history of our country. And whereas Native Americans have moving stories of tragedy, triumph, and perseverance that need to be shared with future generations. And whereas Native Americans have enriched our heritage and continue to add to all aspects of our society through their generosity of culture and the continued practice of teaching economic, environmental, and cultural sustainability. And whereas our country is blessed by the character and strength exemplified by the Native Americans who have answered the call of service in our armed forces in greater numbers per capita than any other group in the United States. We honor our Native American veterans and those who serve in active duty for their bravery and sacrifice. And whereas the Land Acknowledgement Committee in the City of Wheat Ridge is working actively to honor indigenous people who have lived and worked on the land we now call home. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge is committed to developing and maintaining relationships with local tribal communities. And whereas during the month of November, we honor our Native peoples in this their ancestral home and recognize their continued contribution in strengthening the diversity of our society. Now, therefore, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge and the Wheat Ridge City Council, do hereby proclaim November 2022 as Native American Heritage Month in the City of Wheat Ridge and encourage all residents to join in this observance. I would like to invite Sergeant Jamie Watson to the podium to join me. How are you tonight?
Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Thank you for being here. This is a proclamation for Veterans Day, November 11th, 2022, and National Veterans and Military Families Month, November 2022. Whereas America has the greatest armed forces in the history of the world, and whereas we owe a debt we can never repay to those who serve, and those who serve alongside them, their families and caregivers. And whereas we recognize and thank our service personnel, their families and caregivers, for their indispensable contributions and immeasurable sacrifices in support of our national security. And whereas, as we approach this season of Thanksgiving, we send our gratitude to millions of service members, veterans, military families, caregivers, and survivors who have served and continue to serve our nation. And whereas, it is not only the person who wears the uniform serving our country, but also their families who make enormous sacrifices for our nation. And whereas our veteran and military families do so much and ask for so little, they are strong and adaptable, changing course to accommodate the needs of our country, often foregoing personal wishes. They are capable and proud, holding down the home front during their loved one's deployment, coping through their absence, knowing the risk, but providing unwavering support, and helping them readjust when they come home. And whereas we honor them and their invaluable contributions, we share in the pride in our armed forces, and we will never forget that they and their loved ones do for us. Now, therefore, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Wheat Ridge City Council, do hereby proclaim November 2022 as National Veterans and Military Families Month, and recognize and honor our veterans on Veterans Day, Thursday, November 11th, 2022. Throughout November, a grateful nation and the city of Wheat Ridge can show appreciation to the spouses, partners, children, caregivers, and survivors of our service members and veterans for their selfless sacrifice on behalf of our nation. I'd like to say a few words.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, and City Manager Patrick Goff. I've been asked to accept this proclamation several times in the past, and it always gives me such great pleasure and honor to accept this proclamation, and the feeling that it gives me inside, not just for me, but for the other veterans and family members, is beyond words. This is something that means so much to each of us. It's nice to know, I've been deployed 3 times, and it's nice to know that when we leave, we have a family back here with the city of Wheat Ridge to come home to. And not only do we have the family here that takes care of us while we're gone, we have people in this organization who help and remain in contact with our families to help our families through everything. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be here again this year. So on behalf of the current veterans, past veterans, and future veterans of the city of Wheat Ridge, as employees and citizens, I graciously accept this, and I'm proud again to take care of this for another year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to ask Angel LePierre to join me in the podium. Thank you. How are you tonight? Good. Thank you for coming up. This is a proclamation in support of Law Enforcement Records Personnel Appreciation Week, November 14th through 18th, 2022. Whereas dedicated law enforcement records personnel serve the state of Colorado to provide communities with vital services, and whereas law enforcement's records personnel are crucial to assisting law enforcement agencies identify, pursue, capture, and process suspects. And whereas these professionals continually use their expertise and experience in maintaining criminal justice standards and improving apprehension strategies. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff law enforcement records is influenced by their positive attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas law enforcement's records personnel serving the state of Colorado exhibit professionalism, efficiency, and compassion during the performance of their essential duties every day. And whereas the city of Wheat Ridge is proud to the dedicated police department records professionals who respond to the needs of officers and detectives while also serving our community members with care and compassion during what for them is often a very difficult time. And whereas the state of Colorado has designated the second week in November to recognize law enforcement records personnel. Now therefore, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge and the Wheat Ridge City Council, do hereby proclaim November 14th, 2022 through November 18th, 2022 as Law Enforcement Records Personnel Appreciation Week and ask our citizens to join in this celebration. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
So, Mayor Starker and City Council, Mr. Goff and Allie, and especially Chief Murtha, who couldn't be here, but also our officers and detectives, thank you so much, because I've worked for other agencies. This department, the city, treats all of our personnel and records as civilians. They treat us as part of the Blue family, and it's very nice to have that opportunity to be part of that and support them. So thank you very much for this.
Okay, well, thank you. We're now going to our public's right to speak. Members of the public may come and speak on any matter not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes under public's right to speak. I have several people who have signed up to speak, and when I call your name, if you'd please come to the podium and please give us your first name and last name. If you'd please spell your last name and give us your address, then the clerk will start the timer and you'll have 3 minutes to address the council. And our first speaker is Lee Recca, and Rosemary, looks like Bowden on deck.
Lee Recca, R-E-C-C-A, and I live at 4475 Brentwood Street. I'm returning today to again ask that a study group be formed to stop the opening of a firearms supply store at 9166 West 44th Avenue, just 225 feet away from Anderson Pool and within walking distance of at least 3 schools. A gun store at this location presents an unacceptable risk to the park and pool users and the community. There are 2 access ways from the gun store to the pool. One goes in between buildings, trees and parked cars with lots of cover and hiding places, and the other is a sidewalk leading from the corner directly to the pool. A gunman could walk there and shoot through the open chain link fencing. There are several ways this gun store could be stopped. The Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act prevents firearms within 1,000 feet of a school. Anderson Park has a swimming school and other educational activities. In addition, Compass Montessori School is 4 blocks west, and school children regularly walk down 44th Avenue past that site. School zone means on the grounds of or within 1,000 feet of the grounds of a school. In addition, there is a new state law that gives localities more leeway to impose restrictions on gun trafficking. SB 51-256, called the Local Regulation of Firearms, enables a local government to enact an ordinance, regulation, or other law governing or prohibiting the sale, purchase, or transfer of a firearm, ammunition, or accessory. But the most compelling reason, I think, for keeping a gun shop out of the entrance to Anderson Park is to avoid destroying the sense of security in our community that allows people to take their children and grandchildren to the park or pool. It is a tradition to take my 6 grandchildren to the Carnation Festival, the circus, the fireworks, Anderson Park concerts, and the Greenbelt. All this would be out if a gun shop is allowed there. No more Joe's Cafe or Pietra's Pizza. And many other Wheat Ridge residents feel the same way. The gun shop would most certainly lead to a sharp reduction in attendance and proceeds. Due to these concerns, I again ask that a task force be appointed to investigate this and make recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rosemary Bowden.
Rosemary Bowden, B-O-W-D-E-N, 3535 Dudley Street, Wheat Ridge, Colorado. I received a letter from the city that it said, as a result, the city council will be considering the request for traffic calming measures on Dudley Street on and on, scheduled for November 14th, 7 p.m. here. It's not on the agenda. Am I missing something?
Well,
I'm here to respond to the letter that said this was on the agenda tonight, and it's not on the agenda. What did I do wrong?
You didn't do anything wrong, sorry. It was pulled from the agenda. There was, one of your neighbors pulled their signature, I believe, from the petition, so we couldn't bring it in front of council tonight.
That's good.
believe a
Everyone
l-
pulled their signature,
I-
so that's good.
I believe a letter went out, speaking of the pulling from the agenda, so apologize you didn't receive that in
Okay.
time.
All right, no worries. We'll take off. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Walter Cordapul? Cordapul? I'm going to let you give me a good pronunciation on that, sir.
Yeah, Walter Cordial, Kordziel, and we live at 3535 Dudley Street also. And I was going to speak on behalf of the letter also that
Okay.
in response to for the speed bumps and the parking signs, but I guess that'll be at a later date.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak under public's right to speak. And let me also note that if you are joining us online, you may raise your hand in the virtual format, and we will bring you into the meeting. And if you'll do that now, I'll ask the clerk if anyone has raised their hands. Okay, and there's no one else to come forward to speak, so we will close that, portion of our agenda and move to agenda item number 1. And Councilor Nosler Beck, would you please introduce that item?
Thanks, Mayor. Council Bill number 18-2022, an ordinance amending sections 2-89 and 11-565 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to provide an administrative subpoena process for hotel licensing. At issue, this council bill amends the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to authorize the issuance of administrative subpoenas for records related to hotel licensing requirements.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is not quasi judicial, and it is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Mr. Dahl, our city attorney.
Mr. Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For this presentation, I'd like to introduce Nicholas Klein, who's a new attorney in our office. He's over here, and he's going to make the presentation on this ordinance. He's drafted it. He's worked with the city staff in creating that, and of course, this ordinance furthers the city's goals around the hotel licensing process that has been important to the council and you've been working on for some time. So I'd like to introduce Nick, and he can take the podium and tell you about it.
Very good, Mr. Klein. If you'll join us at the podium, and I'll ask the clerk to turn off our red light. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. So this is a pretty straightforward, simple ordinance. It amends Chapter 2 and Chapter 11, and it all stems from a United States Supreme Court case, Los Angeles versus Patel. There, what do you know? They also considered a hotel licensing scheme, and they held the scheme to be facially unconstitutional because at the time when administrative warrants or administrative subpoenas would be issued to inspect books for hotels, there was no appeal process that hotel owners could undertake, and in effect, you could either decide to comply with the subpoena or be punished, and that is what was present in Chapter 2. So, as you'll see in a response to this, we amended the language to make it unlawful for a party to refuse to obey a subpoena unless that party is pending an administrative appeal concerning that subpoena. And in response to that, we also added to Section 11-565 a power for the city treasurer or their designee to issue these administrative subpoenas. The administrative subpoenas are pretty normal. In fact, the Supreme Court went so far as to say that procedures like this are ubiquitous. So this isn't anything out of the ordinary legally, but the lack of an appeals process for the administrative subpoena was something that our office highlighted and wanted to make sure that it made the code. And I think that kind of sums up what I have to talk about, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to open this up for the public to come forward and speak on this issue. I don't believe I had anybody signed up to speak on this one, but if you are here and would like to speak, you may come to the podium now And if you're online, you can raise your hand, and I don't see anybody coming, so I'll go to questions from council. Going once, going twice. Thank you, Mr. Klein. Looks like we don't have any questions.
Thanks for having me. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before I close the public hearing, are there any other questions that councilors have for staff? Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Goff, can you just explain, we utilize the treasurer's office for other hearings and whatnot. Can you just explain kind of, this is going to add to that, so can you just kind of give us the list of the hearings that we utilize our treasurer for?
Mr. Treasurer, do you want to come speak to that? Mr. Dahl might be able to speak to it too, but mostly a lot of our business licensing, if there's a revocation or suspension in business licensing or any type of licensing, our city code allows the city treasurer to hold a hearing if requested by the business owners. So he's done a few, I believe, in a lot of sales tax and business licensing cases. But Chris, you want to respond to that?
I think it's just what the city manager said. Mostly so far, it's been issues related to audits, things that need to come before me for decisions when a taxpayer has a dispute. I really view my role kind of as an advocate for the taxpayer, work as someone like an ombudsman role, and listen to them, their side of the story, and advocate on their behalf when it comes to things like audit hearings. So far, we haven't had anything of a business license come to my attention. There were some rumblings about a couple that I was prepping for, but the issue was ultimately resolved. So this would add to those other lists of potential issues that are relative to business licensing.
And just for the record, give us your name and your position.
I'm Chris Miller, City Treasurer.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring that up just to point out that it's not unusual for us to utilize our treasurer's office in this way.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions before I close the public hearing? I'm going to close the public hearing, and Councilor Nosler-Beck, may I please have a motion?
I move to approve Council Bill number 18-2022, an ordinance amending sections 2-89 and 11-565 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to provide an administrative subpoena process for hotel licensing, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Stites. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 39-2022, a resolution declining full participation in the Colorado Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program. At issue, the Colorado Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Act was passed by voters at the November 2020 election. The new law requires all employers to provide paid family and medical leave to its employees through a state-managed program which is funded by employer and employee paycheck withholdings. Local governments have the option to decline participation in the program.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation?
We do. I'll turn it over to Ali Sheck, our Administrative Services Director. We have some of our folks from our terrific HR department. She'll introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. Ali Sheck here. Nice to see everybody. They are terrific. So this is Michael Klassen, our HR manager, who I believe you saw last here in June, and also Melissa Long, who's our newest HR business partner. She's doing an amazing job and has been leading the initiative on Colorado Family, who you also heard from in June. And Melissa's going to walk you through where we're at today and then ask for your help. Thank you.
Good evening. We're going to talk to you briefly about the Colorado Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program. As you may recall, this program is going to provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave to employees that work in the state. This program is going to be funded by premiums that are assessed against an employee's wages, and that will begin in January. Local government employers do have the option of opting out of participating in the program if they take a vote by their governing body, and this vote must be done and registered with the state no later than January 1st. At the June 27th study session, we provided an in-depth review and analysis of this program, and at that time, we recommended opting out of participating. You provided consensus to us to move forward with the opt-out process and to draft a proposal for a city-specific paid leave program. Our draft proposal, which is outlined in your packet, would provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave for city employees for the same reasons as outlined in the family program. Employees would use PTO or an existing sick leave bank to cover the first 40 hours of leave and the last 40 hours of leave if needed. No premiums would be assessed against an employee's wages, and the wage replacement for all the employees would be 100%. We have provided a chart for comparing the family program with our proposed city paid leave program. And we do anticipate reviewing this program after the first year to assess its efficacy and to make any changes if necessary. We have provided quite a bit of outreach to our employees over the last month and a half. We provided 2 citywide town halls to present information on the family program and answer questions. We also sent out multiple emails to all of our staff with background information on the family program and notice of this meeting and the opportunity to provide comment. We do welcome any feedback tonight, and we also recommend voting to opt out of participating in the family program. Mr. Mayor, that does conclude our presentation tonight.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions of council, I will open this up to the public. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this, but if you are here and would like to speak, you may do so now by coming to the podium. And if you are online, you may raise your hand, and we'll bring you into the discussion. But I don't see any public speaking on this one, so I'll go with questions from council. You left once, twice. Looks like we don't have any questions. So thank you very much for your overview of this item. Council, any other things that we should ask before we ask for a motion? So I'm going to close the public hearing. And Councilor Stites, may I have a motion on this item?
Ms. Noslerbeck has raised her hand.
I'm sorry, Ms. Noslerbeck, I missed your hand.
I just wanted to make a comment. I know that when we were first discussing this, I really put everybody through a lot of questions on it, and a lot of that came from my concern that we really were opting into a better program than what was being offered. And I just really want to thank everybody on staff for really stepping it up and answering all of my questions. And I think this is a really comprehensive first go at this. And one of the things I really appreciate about the program as it's laid out here is that it also gives us an opportunity to revisit it, to make sure that it's actually working for our employees and fitting their families' lives and their needs. So just really appreciate all the time and effort, and y'all are great. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Stites, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 39-2022, a resolution declining full participation in the Colorado Paid Family Medical Leave Insurance Program.
Second.
Second by Councilor Weaver. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I also wanted to thank staff for coming forward with an alternative plan. I do want to go on record saying that I feel like it's poor policy for the government to impose legislation, and I know that this was voted upon by our electorate, but also the fact that there's an exemption for local governments indicates that it's burdensome on our small businesses, and I feel like that this is going to be pretty detrimental. I've heard from several small business owners in our community indicating how much this is going to hurt them, and I think us realizing that and wanting to opt out, given the choice to do so, we recognize that it's an undue burden, and so it's a little frustrating. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you. We will move now to agenda item number 3. Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 20-2022, an ordinance amending sections 22-58 and 22-67 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to establish an exemption from the city sales and use tax for carryout bag fees enacted by the state of Colorado. At issue, the Colorado State Legislature adopted a carryout bag fee effective January 1st, 2023, which by January 1st, 2024 prohibits all retailers with a few specific exemptions from providing single-use plastic bags. Carryout bags are currently subject to local sales tax. As a home rule city, Wheat Ridge is able to establish its own laws, including the ability to exempt from taxation certain goods and services. The attached ordinance enacts such an exemption for the city.
Thank you very much. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. Councilor Ohm, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 20-2022, an ordinance amending sections 22-58 and 22-67 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws to establish an exemption from the city's sales and use tax for bag fees enacted by the state of Colorado on first reading, or to publish public hearing set for Monday, November 28, 2022 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in city council chambers, if allowed to meet in person on that day per COVID-19 restrictions, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
Second. Second by Mayor Pro Tem Holteen. Is there any discussion on the motion? Generated a lot of action there in the council. Okay, seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
On motion, seconded by every member of council, the motion has passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you so much. That will take us to agenda item number 4. Once again, Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 21-2022, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 7525 West 44th Avenue from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial. MUC case number WZ-22-08. At issue, the applicant requesting approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial for property located at 7525 West 44th Avenue. The zone change will result in zoning that matches surrounding zoning and enables redevelopment of the site by expanding permitted uses.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. Councilor Ohm, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mayor. I move to recommend Council Bill number 21-2022, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 7525 West 44th Avenue from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial. MUC on first reading or published. Public hearing set for Monday, December 12, 2022 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in city council chambers if needed to meet in person on that date per COVID-19 restrictions, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Dozman. Is there discussion on the motion? Or there is no discussion. Mr. Clerk, please poll the council. Thank you.
Mr. Ohm, thank you. Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 5. Councilor Hutchinson, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a motion to approve the selection of public art for the Improve Wadsworth project to JCAS Studios. At issue, the Improve Wadsworth project includes funding for public art. The process for selecting public art is defined in the Public Art Management Plan. For this process, a series of public art pieces proposed by the JCAS Studios team have been commissioned. JCAS Studios' proposal was selected by an appointed committee for recommendation to the Cultural Commission. The Cultural Commission reviewed the proposal and per the defined process would like to make recommendation to City Council for acceptance and purchase. The purchase price of $475,000 includes design, construction, installation, and documentation.
Thank you very much. This will be a motion of the council, and we're looking forward to it, so it is not quasi-judicial. So, Mr. Goff, do we have hopefully a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Karen O'Donnell, our Parks and Rec manager, is here.
Terrific.
I'm a manager. You demoted me, Patrick.
What did I say? I'm sorry. Parks and Rec director.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Karen O'Donnell, Director of Parks and Recreation, and it is my pleasure to introduce our public art consultant for the city, Kendall Peterson, with There Squared. She's going to talk you through the public art process associated with the Wadsworth Widening Project and ask for your support to move forward at the end. Kendall.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor.
Good morning. Good evening.
It's nice to finally meet you in
Nice.
person.
Nice.
And Council, thank you very much for inviting me to talk a little bit about this project. I'm going to move fairly quickly. Please interrupt me if you have questions. It's hard to consolidate months of decision-making into this short little presentation. Mayor Starker was on our selection panel, so please pipe in if you would like to.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if that's protocol or not, so. But anyway, you all know very much about the whole purpose and need of the Wadsworth the Wadsworth project, but we're here to talk about the public art that it will, how do I go forward? The arrow? Sorry. Just the arrow? Okay. Sorry. It happens to me all the time. That's not working? No. How about?
That's odd. Hold on for a sec. Let's see here. No, no, no. Oh, did it go? That's odd.
Just click it? So were you just using the mouse then?
Well, let's try this again. I was using my phone. Oh, it's so weird. It's with whenever we share screen through Zoom, it won't click through now. That's a recent picture. Oh, now it works.
Yeah, I can just use the left click.
Oh gosh, sorry.
Oh,
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Try these.
Okay.
It's working now.
It's working now.
That's a ghost.
Okay.
Do it again.
Okay, so these are just the topics we'll cover very, very briefly. First of all, you all know what's going on Wadsworth. I actually just drove past it a couple days ago to check out the progress. It's really exciting what's going on there, and the project is primarily a street, trying to make things safer and make it more easy for you to walk and ride down the street, but ultimately the public art will serve as a gateway to your community. So that is an exciting thing to be adding to the project. So this is our selection panel. You can see that we had a cultural commissioner, and then this is the required group that we need to do for every selection that we do for public art. This was given to me at the early stages, so this is sort of an outlay of where public art might be needed in parts of the project. So if you'll see, it's kind of hard to tell, but at the north entry on Wadsworth, there is an area where we kind of conceived of having a gateway piece, a vertical piece of artwork, and then several areas on the median, the raised median, which kind of protects the artwork, and then Further down on Wadsworth, there is an opportunity for possible mural on a noise wall that's being created in front of a retirement community. So this is the sound wall location at the lower end of the project. It's about 140 feet long. So these are just some plans. So this shows the north end. There's a ramp that comes down that connects the trails from Clear Creek and near the park, and then it'll come down. So there's a really nice area where you can have a sculpture, a tall sculpture right here. All of these locations were discussed with the group, and we wanted to make sure that we had consensus that this is the areas that we should consider. So those were the 3 areas that went out to on a request for qualifications via callforentry.org. That is a sort of an industry standard where public artists can apply for art opportunities around the nation. We were giving Colorado artists preference. We did not want to limit it just to Colorado artists because it's such a big splashy commission. So we made sure that Colorado artists were given preference, and the way we did that was sort of at every stage we would look at where the artists were coming from and discuss whether or not they were Colorado artists, and I also made sure that all of the Colorado artists with a certain, the way you go through it is you grade all these artists based on their portfolio, and we made sure that all the artists that were over a certain amount made it into our final consideration. And we wanted to make sure that we gave the opportunity for artists to do one piece of either just the murals or the sculptural elements or the whole kit and caboodle. The idea being that we thought that one artist might be able to provide a whole kind of narrative along the boulevard, but we also wanted to give muralists an opportunity to do something that was a point and counterpoint artistic effect. So this has been kind of a long process. I think we had lots of scheduling issues. Mayor Starker is a busy guy, so it started in April, and then this is kind of where we're at with the project itself. But you can see that we had $485,000 total budget, which is the 1% for public art as required by ordinance. And then we subtracted a few items there for stipends to the artists. We always pay the artists for their proposals, and then callforentry.org. So this is the timeline that we went through. So you can see we had many meetings. I invited all the artists that were shortlisted to come to a virtual site visit, which was really fun. We did that via Zoom, and one of the staff members were able to show all the artists what was planned for the area, so they got all the documents they needed that way. So this is where we are now. So we just submitted this to Cultural Council on the 9th, and now we're coming to you all for approval to move forward to contract. So I'm just going to really quickly go through the artists, and this just happens to be in the order that they presented in. We selected 7 artists or artist teams out of 157, I think it was, different portfolios. So it took a lot of time for the selection members to go through and score each of these. So it was a long process to get to this point. So we brought back 2 muralists, and then 5 other teams that would do the whole corridor ostensibly. So this is a local artist. She's out of Golden, Alexandria Pangburn. She's a muralist. This was her proposal, and I won't go into a whole lot of detail on these first ones just because they were not the selected artists. The one at the end was our selected artist. Alexandria's piece recalls all the types of flora and fauna that you might find in the area, as well as some of the architectural details, if you can see in the background. This was another muralist. He is out of Florida. Jonathan proposed a piece that was based on sound, and the idea that the sound wall would be providing a buffer for the retirement community behind, and also the idea that art can provide a way of buffering sound. So the sort of infinity symbol in the back is actually a sound wave of this perfect harmonious sound that might sort of help people. It was a little awkward though, because they also had a sound piece and this wasn't a sound piece. So there was a lot of discussion around that. This is a piece by P2 Studio. They're out of Indianapolis and Los Angeles. These guys did the whole corridor-wide project. So they proposed a mural up at at the south end. This had also flora and fauna that's local to the area. There was some discussion about whether or not sandhill cranes really come through the area. So that was an interesting conversation. But also it's based on sort of this idea of threads, the threads of the community, and the idea that this thread that starts on the north, which is the upper left-hand corner sculpture for the gateway, would then continue through the medians. There's sort of these ribbons, colored ribbons that would go through the medians and then end up at the mural. I think there were some concerns about climbing on the sculpture, as well as just the rigidity of the mural sculptures, but I think everybody appreciated their proposal. This is a proposal by Gordon Huther. He's out of Napa, California. He only proposed for sculptural elements, and these are elements that would be lit. All of these would be lit at night. That was very important to the group, but he actually showed them lit at night, and these are based on the Rocky Mountains. And these were colored perforated steel sculptures. This is a piece by Patrick Merrill, who's a local artist. He actually went to Wheat Ridge High School, and he was also a semifinalist for the last project I brought to you all. He did sculpture only as well. It's just a very abstract piece, concentric circles made out of mirror polished steel. And again, there were some concerns about just the connection to the site and how this will look when there's actually a railing on this bike ramp that comes down. This was a second runner-up. This was a real favorite of the mayor's. This is DeWitt Godfrey. These are his pieces that he proposed for the entry area and also two of the median areas. He did not have a mural proposal. His pieces are always in this realm. They're very abstract, and he likes the idea of playing with this sort of fluidity of what is actually really solid, which is Core 10 steel, and the way these elements fit together and kind of, for lack of a better word, smush together and create these really interesting ovoid forms. I think everybody really appreciated the proposal. I think that the only thing that may have been lacking was just a sort of a psychic connection to the city of Wheat Ridge, but also there are a couple of other pieces by DeWitt in Denver and some other neighboring cities. So there was concern that maybe we've seen others and they wanted something really original. So the final proposal that we had was the winning proposal. This is JCAS Studios, and JCAS was a made-up name. It's for individual artists that come from the neighborhoods around here. Colin Parson is the director of the art portion of the Arvada Center. He is a Wheat Ridge native, also a Wheat Ridge farmer. And then a couple of other artists that kind of banded together. This is the first time that they proposed for a project like this. So they basically just pulled together and put this proposal together as the first time. So the cosecha means harvest in Spanish. And they started with this concept of these microscopic sort of slices through. These are slices through a wheat stalk. And so this is the microscopic level. And what they do is they're taking this as sort of the idea of what they want to do for their mural. There's a little concern about the visibility of this on the mural wall. We'll have to be doing some sort of engineering of this to make sure it's super visible. But basically, you can see this is a mock-up that they had in their studio. It's lit from behind. And the one thing that was really interesting is that they're doing zero waste in all of in their proposal. So the idea is that these pieces that they cut out of they become the positives for the other sculptures that they're making. So all of the steel will be used in these sculptures. So this is the mural wall. It's really hard to see. These are sculptural elements based on those pieces that they cut out. These are celery seeds, they're sort of abstracted celery seeds. These are abstracted wheat berries. Some people took issue with this shape. They kind of thought it looked like horns or something that was a little bit too stark for the boulevard, so we might be sort of switching this up a little bit too. Maybe we'll just do celery seeds, we don't know yet. We're gonna be working through that. That's the whole point of these proposals, is that they're not set until we figure out exactly where they'll go. And then these are the proposed, these are based on very abstracted carnations. Of course, you are the carnation city. And we had said no carnations, but these actually are pretty lovely, I think. And all of these will be lit at night. They'll be very tall. I think the idea was that they would poke up above the ramp so that you would actually see them sort of almost like buds of wildflowers poking up, like when you in the spring when they come out. So those were the three elements. And this is some of the comments, and Mayor Starker, please feel free to give your ideas too. But I think the group really liked the zero waste concept. I think it was really something that's neat, and we would love to be able to promote that when we start to roll out the sculpture. I think it's also really cool that they're all local artists, and that we're giving these emerging artists a chance at a really cool project. They all have very deep connections to Colorado and to Wheat Ridge, and I thought they made a really great presentation about the whole idea of the harvest and the historic harvest that came from here, but also the idea that we're harvesting the community and using these projects to kind of harvest a new life for Wheat Ridge. Lighting will be key, and we might have some opportunities to increase this project onto the bus stops. We have to do some questioning on whether or not that will happen. So in the end, there were 6 votes for the JCS Studios, 1 vote for DeWitt, and so the democracy was the JCAS to move forward, but I think everyone was very excited and very pleased with all the results that we had from this all the proposals. So.
Well, Kendall, thank you very much. Great presentation, and I want to sort of recognize Kendall for leading a great process. It was really, as you can see, really thoroughly done, and a pretty engaging, a number, great wide variety of artists and a great interest in the project. She did a great job in leading that. I think it's going to be a really outstanding project when we get it in real life, and I'm really excited to see it happen. So. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to invite anyone in the public to come forward and speak on this. I have no one signed up, but if you would like to speak on this, you may do so now, either in person or online.
Don't see anyone.
No see anybody online. Okay, well, I will go to questions from council. Councilwoman Nosler-Beck.
This is the coolest. That was the coolest. I love how creative it got with the slicing of the wheat stalk, and that's what you're looking at. It is a connection to everything, and also my family's farm was at 45th and Wadsworth, and
Really?
they grew celery.
No way. No.
And so it is historically accurate too. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for all the work that went into this, and thanks so much to these incredible artists that are homegrown, for stepping up and putting together a proposal that's just so Wheat Ridge. If there's anything we can do to make sure that this just turns out just like as presented, let us know, or me know, how I can be helpful. This is so great.
Thanks for your comments. I'm going to give it all back to them because they are over the moon. I have to call them tonight, so.
I have a bunch of old photos of our celery farm and stuff, so I'd love to send those over to them so they could.
Please, yeah, contact Karen.
They also grew peonies, so anyway, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everyone who worked on this. I echo Ms. Nosler-Beck's comments. I mean, this is really exciting. First of all, it's just exciting to think of the Wadsworth project being done.
I agree.
That got me excited too. But I think, a couple things really excited me. One is, it is really thrilling to see such competitive proposals coming out from our own community, that we have such talent here that is going up against talent across the country. And I couldn't agree more. It's both abstracted, but it's also just so deeply rooted in our identity as a community. So it feels to me it's really a beautiful bridge from our past to our future. And I hope we do a good job of educating our community about what these pieces are, what they mean, and making, because it's not going to be, I have a botany degree, so I knew exactly what that picture was. That's sclerenchyma. But I hope we as a city, as those come in, we're doing things to, write articles in the paper, let people know, and let that be an ongoing cultural conversation. That's what art is good for. So
Yeah, the Cultural Commission had the same desire. They would love to do some sort of video or something like that, kind of just educating people on why zero waste and why they chose these different elements. So hopefully we'll be able to do that, so that the art program can have a little, you can refer people to that. So
awesome. I am leading up to a question. Before I do that, though, we don't talk enough about the Cultural Commission up here. They're doing such exciting work in our community, and this is also just an example of the cafe process, bringing the best foot forward. Could somebody just remind us how these projects are funded in our city?
Sorry, you can go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, and I think we should give some credit to your peers many, many years ago when they created the Public Art Fund, because it has taken a while for the money to build up. But there's two different pots of money. And the pot of the money that's going for this project is 1% of any public project. Wadsworth is a city project, state project. 1% of the budget is set aside for public art. So the first phase of Wadsworth is about $45 million, so there's about $450,000 for this project. And we're lucky. We'll talk about it in budget presentation here in a couple of weeks, but we have numerous projects slated. We're working on the TOD site next for another piece of art, as you all approved a piece out at Clear Creek Crossing. So really excited about these opportunities.
Fantastic. Well, I am glad we are a 1% for arts community, and it'll make our legacy even stronger. Thank you, everyone, for your work, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your time on that.
A real pleasure, thrilled, honored for me to sit on it. Any other questions or comments before we go to a motion? Okay, seeing none, Councilor Hutchinson, may I have a motion on item number 5, please?
I move to approve the selection of public art for the Improve Wadsworth project to JCAS Studios.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, we will go to our next agenda item, number 6. Councilor Dozeman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 40-2022, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2022 Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Projects Fund to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $4,251,442 and to award a contract and subsequent payments to Goodland Construction Incorporated in not to exceed the amount of $7,313,186.74 for street improvements at the Wheat Ridge Ward commuter rail station area. At issue, public infrastructure improvements at the Wheat Ridge Ward commuter rail station area include reconstruction of 52nd Avenue, Tabor Street, Ridge Road, adjacent intersections, and improvements to Valley Water District utilities on 52nd Avenue. Staff is recommending that the lowest responsive bidder, Goodland Construction Incorporated, be awarded a contract in the amount of $7,313,186.74.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council, not quasi-judicial. And Mr. Goff, we have a staff presentation.
Yes, Lauren Mikulak, our interim community development director.
Okay, Ms. Mikulak.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. This project feels like it's a long time coming because it was part of that 2016 bond. So I want to speak just for a moment to the timeline because the community and council have been very patient in seeing this project delivered. As a reminder, the goal of this project is to provide continuous sidewalks on segments of 52nd, Tabor, and Ridge in the northwest sub-area of our community, improving the street conditions really for all users up there. The bulk of our neighborhood engagement and design took place in 2019, and by 2020 we had partnerships finalized and formalized with Jeffco, Arvada, and CDOT. As you know, we put the project on pause with the pandemic and picked up earlier this year, finalizing the design and advertising the bid. This resolution awards construction to Goodland, and the next item includes an agreement with Valley Water so that we can improve water lines at the same time. We do think construction could actually start by year end and will take about a year. We know that a lot of our public engagement happened a few years ago, so we do plan to partner as a city with the contractor to make sure that there's adequate communication to both the neighborhood and the public about impacts during that process. I'm here tonight with my engineering colleagues, Mark and Steve, if you've got any questions for any of us.
Okay, thank you.
Just available
You're-
for questions.
you're available
The
for-
only other thing I would add is that we did street width back on January 10th of 2022. So we're within the 1-year period of being able to execute a construction contract. We only have a year to do that once we designate street width. So we did it twice. We don't have to do it a third time. So I just
Okay.
wanted to let everybody know that that was not going to be a thing.
Thank you for getting that done. Before we go to questions from council, I'd like to open it to the public. If you, I have no one signed up to speak. If you're here and would like to speak, you may do so now, and you may do so online, and I'll ask our clerk if anyone has come forward to speak. Okay, we'll go to questions from council. For staff, any questions? Okay, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Mikulak. Ms. Dozman, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 40, 2022, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2022 Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Projects Fund to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $4,251,442 and to award a contract and approve subsequent payments to Goodland Construction in an amount not to exceed $7,313,186.74 for street improvements at the Wheat Ridge Ward commuter rail station area.
Second.
Motion and a second by Councilor Hoppy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
My comment is short, yay sidewalks.
Okay. Any follow-up to that? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to agenda item number 7. Councilor Nosler-Beck, would you please introduce this item?
Resolution number 41-2022, a resolution approving an agreement with the Valley Water District regarding water line improvements in 52nd Avenue. Whoa, I'm rusty. Sorry, everybody. At issue, public infrastructure improvements at the Wheat Ridge Ward commuter rail station area include reconstruction of 52nd Avenue, Tabor Street, Ridge Road, adjacent intersections, and improvements to Valley Water District utilities in 52nd Avenue. As part of the reconstruction of 52nd Avenue, the Valley Water District needs to reconstruct a portion of their water main. The water main is in conflict with the proposed storm sewer and needs to be relocated. An agreement is needed between the city and Valley Water to outline each entity's responsibilities and to detail a reimbursement obligation.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We don't have anything to add. As Ms. Mikulak mentioned, this is part of the street projects up at the Wheat Ridge Ward Station. So if you have any questions, let us know.
All right. Before we go to questions from council, we'll go to the public for any questions or input on this item. I don't have anyone signed up. If you're online and want to speak on this, raise your hand, and I don't see anyone doing that. So we'll go to questions from council. Councilperson Dozman.
Thank you. So this is just for staff. As we are increasing development or going to be seeing more development, what is the process of engaging with like water districts and sanitation districts during the planning process?
Sure. There's 2 primary methods. So first, any development proposal, whether it's a zone change or site plan, gets sent on referral to those agencies when we get that first submittal so that we can understand their capacity and any infrastructure requirements. And then additionally, we meet with all outside agencies, including water and sanitation, on a quarterly basis to let them know of things that may not yet be on referral but are coming down the pipe. So, and maybe there's a third way. When we do sub-area planning, so when we did the Northwest sub-area plan a number of years ago, we meet with utility agencies to make sure that if we have a vision that increases density in sort of a more holistic way, that the districts are aware and can plan appropriately for those kinds of upgrades.
Do we anticipate needing upgrades, and do we have any funds set aside in case we need to subsidize those?
Yeah, I don't know specifically if Valley's planning to upsize. Mr. Westberg might know that in more detail.
They're not upsizing, they're just replacing a very old line, and it's in the way of our storm sewer. We had to get everything to fit in there. In addition to the things that Lauren mentioned, we also, as a part of our normal design process, once we get conceptual plans done, we send those out on referral to all the dry and wet utilities to do any kind of coordination, which is why you've been seeing us get them involved in rebuilding lines on 29th Avenue, rebuilding lines on 52nd, rebuilding lines in Wadsworth. So we're trying to partner with them, and it saves the districts a lot of money when they can partner with us, because they're not having to pay for paver removal, restoration, and traffic control and stuff. So they're getting their lines replaced for a lot less money than they would if they were doing it themselves.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem Holteen.
This is just a little bit tangential to Ms. Dozman's question, but Patrick, remind me, don't we have on future agenda items a discussion of our utilities and our utility districts, our special
We
districts?
will. It's not scheduled yet, but our new Public Works Director, Maria DeAndrea, is going to come in front of council on a study session to talk about kind of our relationship with all of our different districts. I don't think a lot of people in the community don't understand that we're not necessarily a full-service city. I know Mr. Dahl hates when we say we're not full service, because we are. We provide full service for everything except for utilities. And we have seven sanitation districts and 5 or 6 water districts and 3 fire districts. So we're going to have a discussion about all that in the future and how we work together.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just to Ms. Dozman's point, I think it's increasingly important for all of us to understand that, so thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Councilor Nosselbeck, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 41-2022, a resolution approving an agreement with the Valley Water District regarding waterline improvements in 52nd Avenue.
Second.
A motion and a second by Councilor Dozman. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We'll go to agenda item number 8. Councilor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. This is a motion to approve installation of a traffic calming device on 31st Place between Union Street and Vivian Street in accordance with the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. At issue, the residents at 31st Place petitioned the city to address traffic concerns for the street segment from Union Street to Vivian Street in accordance with the city's Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. The city met with residents at a neighborhood meeting and subsequently discussed and devised a plan to mitigate traffic issues. The residents then secured a petition with the necessary number of property owner signatures supporting the installation of a speed hump. Is that different than a bump? It is. Okay, all right, a speed hump. In accordance with the NTMP policy and hereby seeking approval for implementation.
Thank you. This will be a motion from the council, not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Steve, do you have a presentation, or are you just here for questions?
I don't. We just have a couple talking points.
Okay, go ahead. Mr. Steve Wynn here, our engineering manager.
Okay, Mr. Wynn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am presenting item number 8, and that is 31st. 31st Place on the west side of town, a segment from between Union and Vivian Street. Upon request letter from the resident to be considering the NTMP program, we have met with the residents, talk about traffic issues and plans to address those. And we have sent out the plan, and residents have in support of the plan and moved forward with the petition with 80%. And so we are at a stage where we are seeking approval for the plans. We did receive one comment in advance through Whitridge Speaks in the comment that a resident think that having 4 signs on the mitigation plan is excessive. I'm going to refer back to the exhibit in the attachment. You may see that there are 2 signs that related to the speed hump. Those are required to be, accompanied with the speed hump. The other 2 signs are for warning curves. I think that is in response to a complaint where the resident complains about speeding around the curves, and those signs are for that purpose. The city staff will not include those installation if the resident collectively do not want those signs. I do have one of our NTMP program engineer on call, just in case you have further questions on that. So with that said, I'm going to open up for questions.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I'll open this up to the public. Once again, I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you'd like to speak on this, you may do so now, either online by raising your hand or in person. And I don't see anybody coming forward, so we'll go to questions from council. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, so can you share a little bit about what type of data you collect in order to identify what the issue is on the block and what the best remedy is for it?
The data we typically collect is the volumes on that street and the speeds. And our usual duration is about 48 hours. That 2-4-day counts. And we typically do it between Tuesday to Thursday. That typically represent a kind of a pattern, traffic pattern on A Street, whether to show whether we see a problem or not. The 2-day we use is that sometimes it has some fluctuation, so the day 2 is kind of help us to, and typically they behave about in the same range of volume that kind of help validate whether we have a solid data collection or not.
So in a location like this, so you're looking at the volume, and then what type of speeds are indicative of needing some sort of speed control?
As far as speed, the way that the device collects is to put it in cohorts. We would have cohorts like between 5 and 10 miles per hour, how many cars at a certain hour would travel in that range. And the different range we have from 5 miles up to 100 miles per hour if they can physically pull that off. And when those data points are collected, just put in the bin for us to kind of assess how excessive speeding that a street would experience.
And so is it just, do they look at like a average against what the posted speed limit is? I mean,
we look at average, but the technical term we use is called the 85th percentile speed. It is being looked at as 85% of the driving population driving at or below that speed. So if I see a readout of 85th percentile speed of 35 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone, that tells me that 85% of the driving population is driving at 35 miles per hour or less. I know it's hard to grasp, but you can always look at it also called the average peak speed.
Right.
So I'm going to finish it off. Hopefully you get a good understanding on it. If I see a 85th percentile speed of 30 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone, we see that as a problem with speeding.
Got it. Great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff on this? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Steve. Councilor Weaver, may I have a motion on this item?
You may. I move to approve installation of a traffic calming device on 31st Place between Union Street and Vivian Street in accordance with the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Stites, Councilor Stites.
I just want to thank Mr. Wynn. This is my neighborhood. We get a lot of complaints, probably have for 25 years in that neighborhood, and especially with so many new young children moving in on that street, this has been a pretty big concern, and that there's 2 blind curves there, so really appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 9. Mayor Pro Tem Holteen, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce a motion to approve installation of a traffic calming device on Lamar Street between 39th Avenue and 41st Avenue in accordance with the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. At issue, residents on Lamar Street petitioned the city to address traffic issues for the street segment from 39th Avenue to 41st Avenue. In accordance with the city's Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, the city met with residents at a neighborhood meeting and subsequently discussed and devised a plan to mitigate traffic issues. The residents then secured a petition with the necessary number of property owner signatures supporting the installation of a speed hump in accordance with the NTMP policy and are hereby seeking approval for implementation.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have any
Mr.
staff
Nguyen is here
presentation on
again
this one?
with a few brief comments.
Sure.
Mr. Nguyen.
This segment is asking for the same, and this is Lamar between 38th and 41st on the east side of town. I've gone through the process by meeting with the resident, talk about issues, and devise a plan for solution, and they have moved forward with the 80% in favor of petition, and therefore we're seeking for approval tonight. This is a straight stretch with one speed hump installation and related sign, very straightforward.
Thank you. Before we go to questions from council, once again, opening up to the public. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you want to speak, now you may do so. Okay, no one's coming forward, so any questions of council for staff on this item? Seeing none? Oh, excuse me, Councilwoman Weaver.
I would just like, would you please clarify the difference between a hump and a bump? Because I just learned, and I think it's actually helpful for our audience.
I could go technical on this, but
You don't, yeah, no need. 30 seconds is fine.
I'll make it easy. Differentiation between a speed hump and a speed bump. If you may have trouble in shopping parking lot where the speed hump is very narrow and abrupt, that's a speed bump. A speed hump that we put on Residence Street is 14 feet wide. It has a parabola shape. You can negotiate over it, I think, between 15 and 20 miles per hour without jolting your car, but you can't do that over a speed bump, which you typically see in a shopping center parking lot. That's the best way I can kind of differentiate it for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Holteen, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve installation of a traffic calming device on Lamar Street between 39th Avenue and 41st Avenue in accordance with the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you. We'll go to agenda item number 10. Councilor Hoppe, would you please introduce this item?
Yes. Sorry, we were talking about my explanation of speed hump and speed bump, and it was hump and bump is how I described it.
That's a good visual. Thank you.
Item number 10. A motion to approve the purchase and installation for the city's core switches for a total of $165,047.25. At issue, the city's core switches, which facilitate internet access to every city facility, are approaching end of life. If a failure occurred, all city facilities would be affected, causing severe service interruption.
Well, we wouldn't want that to happen. This will be a motion of the council. Mr. Goff, do we have a presentation on this item?
Yeah, briefly, Ali Shecker, Administrative Services Director.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Ms.
Goff
Scheck.
and Mr. Mayor. Jesse Dubin, our new IT manager, is also on if you have any technical questions, but we couldn't agree more. We wouldn't want that to happen. When Jesse started, he did an evaluation of our gear and learned that these are nearing end of life, and the most troublesome thing is with the supply chain issues as a result of the pandemic, the gear is 9 to 12 months out. And we've had a vacant network administrator position almost for the whole year since the end of February. And so we can reallocate those salary savings to pull the trigger now as opposed to wait until next year. I know we're nearing the end of the year, but I think it's a good opportunity to get a jump on it. So we'd like to reallocate those salary savings. This does not require supplemental. We'd like to move ahead with your permission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, we'll open it up to the public. No one signed up, but if you're here and would like to speak, you may do so, and online also. And I don't see anyone coming forward.
Mr. Mayor.
So we will go to questions from council. Any questions? Okay, Councilor Hoppe, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the purchase and installation of the city's core switches for a total of $165,047.25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Stites. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Weaver.
I just want to clarify that since we were talking about humps and bumps earlier, when I first read core switch, I of course pictured that there was some place in the city where there was a giant switch. Speaking of being a full-service city, that we could just turn everything on.
Uh-huh.
That
That'd be
apparently
nice.
doesn't exist. What?
These are.
Did you ask me a question?
No, is there a switch?
A switch? You know, it's really funny. I asked our IT manager, can you show me what this piece looks like? And it's a really big box. But yes.
It is?
No. But I'd really like you to think there is. Exactly. It's like the Christmas lights.
That's what I pictured.
Yes. Jesse is sitting at home right now laughing really hard.
You wouldn't tell me where that was anyway, so it's fine.
Oh, you can't get there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we will move now to agenda item number 11. Councilor Dozeman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve appointment to current vacancy on Liquor Licensing Authority Board. At issue, one of the city's Liquor Licensing Authority Board members in District 4 has moved out of the state of Colorado. This has created a vacancy on this board.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council, and we go to the senior member. So, Ms. Dozeman, are you ready to make a motion on this item?
Yes, I move to appoint Anthony Romano to the Liquor Licensing Authority Board, term ending 3/2/2024.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second by Councilor Nosler-Back. Would the clerk please poll the council?
The motion passes unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I think that gets us through the agenda items. Let's get back to the starting page. And we will go to city managers matters. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items. It's going to be here before we know it. Holiday lighting ceremony. It's coming up. I didn't put the date down. What's the date? Who knows?
3rd.
December 3rd, 3 o'clock, 3 to 6 at the Green on 38th Avenue. So hope to see you all there. I was out touring. My sister was in town touring around all the great things going on in Wheat Ridge, and drove by and saw that Dutch Brothers is open, if you haven't been out there. So if you have your gift card, I think you all got a gift card maybe, so go out and enjoy a Dutch Brothers coffee. And then you all should have received your 2023 proposed budget last week. As we noted in an email that we sent out to you all last week also, reading the budget message is probably the best thing, so don't get freaked out about how big it is. If you're getting freaked out, just read the budget message, please.
Just that second cup of coffee and
best or
something else.
But that's the best place to start. The budget message really gives you the overview of the full budget. So please, if you're running out of time, please concentrate on that. But we also encourage you to, if you need a tutorial of the budget, or if you have questions before our budget presentation on November 21st, please call Allie or myself, and we'd be happy to sit down with you or just answer any questions. The public can access the electronic version of the budget on What's Up Wheat Ridge, or they can review a hard copy in the city clerk's office. So anybody wants to see that, they can, and we look forward to presenting it to you on November 21st. And speaking of public art, and we did briefly mention the Wheat Ridge Ward public art piece. We will be looking for another elected official to sit on that selection committee. So if you're interested, please reach out to Karen O'Donnell. And we haven't started creating that committee yet, I don't think, but every selection committee does have an elected official. So if you're interested, let her know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. City Attorney's Matters, Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Let's see, we'll go to elected officials matters, and I notice we have our treasurer with us, but I'm first going to go to our city clerk, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Clerk Kirkpatrick.
Last Friday, I attended a theatrical presentation by the Wheat Ridge, I've forgotten what they call themselves, city players or something like that, out on 38th Avenue near Sheridan. They're in a strip mall. They're a fledgling organization who presented the ancient Greek comic tragedy Lysistrata. And if you don't know what it's about, the women of a particular Greek city decide to keep their men home from war by going on a sex strike when they come back from their latest deployment, I guess we'll call it. There was a great deal of good acting. I highly recommend that you go and check them out. They are a fledgling group. You are not going to see something that recently appeared on Broadway or off Broadway. But it is a new artistic opportunity in the city, and I wanted to mention it because I think it's important we support these efforts as they try to get started. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And looking forward to having good theater come to Wheat Ridge. So we're really glad that they've got this. This is a new space for them at the Chase on 38th Avenue. So, Mr. Miller, anything we should have a report on? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. We're once again glad to have you with us. And let's see, we'll start with our counselors and Councilor Hutchinson.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Councilor Noslerback.
I wanted to just, it's been a long time since we've all seen each other, and so wanted to thank everybody that came out for Trunk or Treat. And I think it's been that long since we've seen each other. It was a great event, and lots of participation. So special shout out to Local Works for that event. And I also wanted to thank the community for all the work that we put into really elevating the issues that concerned us about the school closures. For a lot of us, the vote didn't go the way that we wanted on November 10th. They're going to be closing 3 schools in our articulation area, but one thing that really just came through was how our community comes together when the tough stuff hits. And so in true Wheat Ridge fashion, I think we're harnessing that energy, and we know that there's more closures on the horizon, and so there still is a large group of community members and family members still talking about what we can do to help. And so we're going to be talking about how our school resources are funded, and starting to dive into some of those conversations. And I invite folks to follow on Facebook, Save Our Community, Save Our Schools, to see how you can get engaged earlier on. And just really from the bottom of my heart, thanks everybody for your support during this tough time. And also that coalition can be a really great resource for families who are trying to figure out what to do next, and talk about how we keep some of our kids together, moving to new schools and all of that. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilor Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Goff beat me to it, but I want to welcome Dutch Brothers to District 3 in Wheat Ridge. I stopped by there this morning, got myself a fairly large energy drink, so I'm still going. I'm good. I might be up until about midnight or so.
Grab the budget.
Yeah, I'm ready. But I also want to thank Guy Namiash for putting on the final, gosh, it has been a couple weeks, the final Art on the Farm of the season. I guess that was back in late October. So thank you to him for all the work he's done to promote the arts over the last few years, and we look forward to seeing that again next summer. And then just to echo what Councilwoman Nosler-Beck said, the vote did not go our way, but I do appreciate, and I am in awe of some of the people in our community at how phenomenally intelligent and respectful and how they conducted themselves through this process. And it was a very frustrating process, and so I appreciate them. I also want to thank the city of Wheat Ridge. We tend to get hit a lot when somebody's upset about something, but our process for getting feedback from our citizens and how we conduct our meetings is apparently not the model for everybody else, and we don't limit public comment. We may limit to 3 minutes, but we allow anybody to come here and speak. They don't have to sign up beforehand. Jeffco does not do that. They limit it to only a few people allowed to speak. They limit the time that you're allowed to speak. They also make you sign up online, which is, I think, Councilman Hutchinson has pointed out several times. Not everybody has access to the internet. It's not an age thing. It's also a demographic thing. It's also income thing. So it's something that I hope Jeffco and Jeffco Public Schools looks at their processes for equity, starting school board meetings at 3:30 in the afternoon and 5 p.m. in the afternoon when parents work is just not an equitable thing. So I really do appreciate how Wheat Ridge conducts its business, and I appreciate our staff and the other elected officials. And I do want to thank all the other council people who showed up 3 weeks ago at Wheat Ridge High School to support our schools. I think that was something that was really important. So thank you. Oh, by the way, we have holidays coming up. The mayor did the proclamation for Small Business Saturday, but if you can find your holiday gifts in Wheat Ridge, find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge, please.
Thank you. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did want to mention that the Wheat Ridge Business Association is having their November Biz Mix tomorrow at 5 Ridges Farm. And that is from 5 to 7 p.m. So if you're looking to connect with local businesses in Wheat Ridge, go to wheatridgebiz.com and sign up and register to attend that tomorrow.
Is that on tomorrow or Wednesday?
Is it? It is Wednesdays.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's
it's been way too long. I think we're all a
No,
little
that's
rusty.
okay.
I'm glad to be back, and thank you for the correction. Appreciate it. And I also wanted to commend Council Members Nosler-Beck and Council Member Stites in their efforts to really try to save our schools from school closure. I remember being in that position in 2017, and it was a very emotional and challenging one. And they really stepped up and represented us at the helm, and they're at 2 impacted schools, so I know that affects them and their families, as well as hundreds of others of families in our community, so it's going to be a long road. I know for me personally, it's really hard to trust an organization that really fumbled this process so terribly, and again, I think that we have come a really long way in building that trust and that rapport with our community, and we have a robust public input process that I really appreciate here in the city of Wheat Ridge, and I wish other organizations would model it. But as Councilmember Nosler-Beck and Stites have stated, we have a lot of work to do in our community, and I was also in complete and utter awe of how articulate and thoughtful some of the community members were in all of these impacted schools, and how they showed up and they engaged, and they really put on a really good fight. And so I'm sorry to see that the outcome is what it is. I think that this will be hurtful to our community moving forward, but as long as we stay engaged in the conversation as to what happens next, I think we have the potential to move it in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
It's just great to see everyone after a month, and I just want to thank the city for expanding my knowledge on a few important issues tonight. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week.
I know geometry is one of your strong suits, so you can go home and thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you. Past couple weeks have been tough, as we've heard from the other council members. I do want to kind of get ahead of what we're going to probably talk about come January. I don't want to wait until January to have the discussions about what our community needs, and so I'm not sure how we crack that nut, but I think that we, I don't know if we need to have some type of study session, because it really does affect the community, of how those schools are going to be repurposed and how they're going to fit in our neighborhoods. We've all heard tonight about traffic issues, and so it's gonna be a careful consideration, and we need, I think, to be fair to our community, the citizens need a lot of time to kind of buy into. I'm sure there's probably going to be a period of mourning, but they're going to need some time to take everything in and come up with some ideas. And I don't know when that appropriate time is, but I don't want to wait until January to then city council starting to. I don't know if anybody agrees with that.
I'd second that if we were putting that on a study session agenda.
Okay. And then other than that, I did attend, it's been a long time, and I think this was probably after our break that I attended the Wheat Ridge Police annual dinner with the mayor. We had a really good turnout there. And it's really important to understand the sacrifices that our police officers have to make, not just to themselves, but to their families too. It's really it's heartbreaking, but it's also, it's really important if you haven't, to be at these ceremonies and to, hear these oaths that the police officers have to take. I kind of wish I could hear more of them, because it really is humbling to hear that. And on another note, for several years, I don't know if the secret's out or not, but I've been very happy that I can go to Wheat Ridge Poultry online and get my turkey reserved and get the right size and everything, and they sell it quick. But that's a wonderful service that, and I can schedule what day I'm going to pick it up. So thank you.
Okay. Hopefully we're not broadcasting far and wide. Okay. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we were here last, Porchlight Family Justice Center had their very first Be the Light Gala, and it was super fantastic and a lot of fun, and I appreciate some of the folks that came to support that. Mr. Miller, Councilwoman Dozeman, Ali Scheck, and then also some sponsors from our counselors too. I really worked you guys over. Ms. Nosler Beck and Corey Stites sponsored. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate it. It was the very first time one, and it was awesome. Tomorrow night, Wheat Ridge High School is having their 8th grade student showcase from 6:30 to 8. And this is an opportunity for students that are looking, that are shopping their high schools basically, to come and learn about Wheat Ridge High School. There will be tables there from our STEM and STEAM. There will be tables for choir. My girls will be there for softball, and the boys soccer, who just won league. So there's a lot of really fantastic things to check out there. So all of the activities and sports clubs and all of the academic clubs will all be there. So I think that it's a really great time. Take your kiddo over there. Tell your neighbors about it. We have a new administration over at that high school, and I cannot tell you how absolutely fantastic it has been over there. So check it out. And other than that, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been so long since we've been in here. A couple things. First of all, I just want to clarify Councilor Ohm's request for a study session. Can you just clarify what it is that you want to cover in that study session?
I think we're going to have ideas of how these schools could transition, and what I want to know is what would be appropriate in the zoning, because we're not going to change the zoning, and what can we do? And it's good. I think some of these are going to be tough, especially like Wilmar Davis. I know is very interior, and so it's definitely not a commercial type entity, but it's a space. What are we going to do with that space? And some ideas, and I want to have that somewhat. My intent is to try to have that somewhat vetted before we actually have to sit down with Jeffco in January, so that we have an idea of how we can kind of facilitate and direct what that vision is.
And so Patrick, I just want to check, do we have staff capacity to have that study session?
Yeah, I
before
was
the end
just
of the
looking
year?
at the calendar. I think it's more the capacity issue is actual meetings, study session meetings before January. I mean, you and I can talk about it on Wednesday on a specific date, but there's not a lot of study sessions before January. And then we get into January and February, there's a lot of study sessions canceled because of holidays. But I think we can figure out a date, maybe after a regular meeting.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Elm, appreciate that.
Can I just add something to that study session in that I'm hopeful that if we are discussing that, we can talk about like safe crossings and with the new routes to the schools. For example, Wilmore Davis, the new school will be Stevens Elementary and we'll have to cross 287, Wadsworth, sorry. So I just want to make sure that that's part of the conversation too.
I think that's a good idea because we've got an email, at least one from the principal at Prospect Valley asking us to do something about the traffic on 32nd and some of the issues that are already going on there. So maybe if we can add that to that discussion, and I don't know if maybe we can get somebody from the school district to come. I don't know that we've made.
This is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my point is, yeah, it's getting bigger, so I just don't think we can turn this around in the next couple of weeks. If you want to add all these things, it's gonna be a couple months down the road.
Even if it's early January or mid-January, I don't know when their process starts, so.
I'd like to propose that we take the land use issue as the standalone for like the repurposing of the sites for our most like sort of triage urgent issue. And then what are the accommodations we need to make as a city to, you know, recognize that we've got different travel patterns for, you know, people walking, people riding their bikes. And maybe that can either be wrapped into the update to the neighborhood traffic management program, which I believe is going to come in front of us in early 2023. But are you guys okay if we recognize that they're both important but slightly separate issues? Okay, great, thank you. All right, my updates. Let's see here. We heard for a second time tonight, this is not my update, Ms. Recca came in to talk to us about the licensing of the gun shop. And I believe the city has communicated with her, but I just want to clarify on record what is the status and what is the process for that business to get its license?
We did communicate with her, and I believe we communicate with all of you also on the status of the business. I honestly don't know if the business has received a business license yet. We can check and let you know. There is no, it's a use by right in that zone district, and they just have to apply for a business license. There's no regulations in the city on distance requirements for that type of use from parks or schools. So there's nothing that we can do to deny that license at this point, unless there's any other issues with the business, you know, that would allow us to deny a license.
Okay, thank you. Then on the topic of the neighborhood transportation management program, I just mentioned that is scheduled for an update at some point, hopefully in the first quarter of next year, for us to talk about revising that. And I think tonight's study session, or tonight's agenda items, to me, were a reminder of the importance of revisiting that and looking sort of holistically as a city at priority corridors that are problematic corridors, especially around our schools and parks, where we've got a lot more vulnerable road users, and really taking a look at what are some more sort of proactive and I think a diverse set of tools that we can use to make sure that our streets are safe for everyone. And I think really like prioritizing our schools is part of that. I happen to really benefit tremendously from the amazing infrastructure around Wilmore Davis School, which I think has benefited from some founding families in our city that advocated for really robust infrastructure. And there are like crossing signals and raised medians, and it is very safe in my neighborhood to cross streets because of some good school advocacy. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. And then my petty grievances, because election season's over. I would love to request some gummy bears up here. Sorry. I am like, yeah, so I'm just putting in a word for gummy bears on the dais. And then just a funny little thing, but every time I look at Mr. Ohm and his poor microphone without a little thingy, do we have any more of these little thingies? Yeah. 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 Yeah.
What are you guys doing to them? What are you,
Yeah.
are you eating them? Are they gummy
Yeah.
there? Don't eat your little
Yeah,
fuzzy
yeah,
ones.
yeah.
We'll get you some new ones, yep.
But in all seriousness, I have missed the space and missed talking about the city that we all love and live in. And when we're not up here having these conversations, it's a lot still happens in our city. And I just am really impressed with our staff. And the holidays are coming and things are going to get a little crazy. But it's good to see you guys again. And I'll look forward to seeing everyone next Monday.
Thank you very much. Gosh, I'm looking at sort of the notes, the things that I wanted to sort of think about, and we've really done a lot in the last 3 weeks since we've been together. I wanted to sort of mention the trunk or treat. Someone mentioned that. What a great late afternoon that was for me, and I really enjoyed being there. If you have a chance to do that, a lot of great kids and a lot of beautiful energy. I was really honored to go to the Adult Center on Friday for a really inspiring Veterans Day celebration with the veterans that were there, and we had a wonderful harmonica presentation by the harmonica puffers, whatever their official name is. They did a great job with the Boy Scouts present and retreat the colors and sang veteran songs, and Rosie the Riveter was there, and it's really a great event, and I want to thank folks for inviting me there. I want to thank all the folks who joined me at Coffee with the Mayor on Saturday morning. We had a great discussion. We were really a pleasure to have a young teenager sort of join us and engage in the discussion with us, and it was really great. Most of our members are sort of my generation, and it's really great to see young life interacting with those that sort of came before. And right after that, it was great. The Historical Society, if you don't know, does a second Saturday event, and they had a great flag raising over at the Bauhaus in honor of Veterans Day, and they had a banjo picker and a lot of great patriotic tunes that we could sing in the Bauhaus. What a real treat it is to go back and look at what our community looked like 150 years ago. So I want to thank them for inviting me to that. Want to highlight again on November 3rd, we're gonna have a holiday celebration and light the lights, and a lot of great activities going there. So it's a really family-friendly event, and I hope you'll come down December 3rd at 3 o'clock at the Green. Let's see, I was really, Councilor Ohm mentioned it, but the police recognition ceremony was a really moving place to be, to talk about the great work that our public safety officers and our police department do throughout the year. And they have a lot of dangerous work out there, and they do a really great job to keep us safe in our community. People say the crime is on the rise, and it does appear to be that way. But I want to express my thanks to our Wheat Ridge Police Department for being out there, for making us as safe as we can be. So thanks to them for that. And I want to thank the election officials, that put on the election in this county, our city clerk and the other election officials that did such a great job to make it possible for us to go and cast a ballot and feel like you were safe, and it was fair and accurately tracked and recorded, and so that we all have a way to participate in our democracy, which to me is the basis of the freedom that we enjoy. To the citizens, and we've had some discussion tonight about the great work that we did in front of the school board to talk about the schools that were closed in our community. Always a really wrenching decision and wrenching topic when we get to it. I want to thank the people that were mentioned and those that came and concerned about their schools and their communities. Two things. I hope that you'll stay engaged in the process, because those properties in the neighborhoods are not going to go away. The school district is going to have to find ways to repurpose those properties, and we need to have our voice at the table. So I appreciate Councilor Ohm bringing that as a topic of discussion that we can discuss in council, but I really want to encourage all the citizens and parents who spoke out about the school closures to stay engaged in the process. And not only the process of the schools that are closed, but the schools where their children are going, and that they need to stay engaged in their new schools where they're going to advocate for their students and their families and the new situation that they're going to be education, because it's not just going to be magic that everything is the way you want it. You have to work and dedicate yourself to doing it. So anyway, we're about out of here. I want to remind everyone to drive safely. We've got some cold weather coming in. Winter certainly seems to be here, and we'll have some snow on the ground, so watch out. It's dark earlier. Watch out for those that are walking and biking in our community, and drive safely and slowly through our community. There's no other business to come before council. We will stand adjourned, and we will be here next week in a study session, correct? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Budget.